Hello, folks. Good evening and welcome to our evening devotion time here tonight. I am going to wait just a few seconds here today. I know that some of you really like to come on at 7 o'clock so you can hear this. We can talk together kind of at the same time. I know it's hard to kind of jump in halfway through where I'm already talking about something and you're kind of then having to listen to the second half and rewind and come back to the first. One of the things that I've been watching on TV, it's a streaming thing, is a show called The Chosen. Show you that so you can see what it is. And there's a website here for it. I'll mention in just a minute, thechosen.tv. Some of you watched also the Sight and Sound production of Jesus last weekend as well, and we've seen different movies and things in the past that are about Jesus, right? That are depictions of the gospel stories, and some take a lot of liberties. Some are just quote from the scripture directly. Others kind of pick up on the imagination and other things. What I want to kind of speak to this evening is to a little bit of a wider or a different audience, because as we are in this current time and season where we're doing a lot more things online than typically we have in the past, it occurs to me that there may be people that are joining us from time to time that aren't already maybe very serious followers of Jesus, or maybe they or you, some of you watching here this now live, or maybe later on, maybe you're just exploring, learning about Jesus for the first time. Maybe it's just something that in this time and season, you've maybe had some more time to think and reflect, and you're kind of opening your heart a little bit in your mind and thinking maybe differently and kind of wondering, well, how do I go about sort of thinking about who Jesus is, or how do I go about taking some of those next steps for myself to kind of think about who Jesus is and what it means to follow him. So if that's you here tonight, I'd like to make a couple of suggestions, and these are kind of slow suggestions. They also apply to the rest of us too, to those who are already have placed their faith in Jesus, are already following him. Some of us for many years, some of us for decades now have been trusting in and following Jesus. And that the goal is to get to know him better, to get to know who Jesus is and what Jesus is like. And well, on the one hand, we can just sort of state a set of kind of basic facts about Jesus, which is good, has its value as well too. But we know that just like people in our lives, that it's getting to know them that really lets us in on someone's character, right? On someone's heart and someone's life. Like all of you who are here today and who are jumping on, most of you, these names now that I'm seeing pop up here, I've known many of you already for years, right? And the longer we know each other, the better we know each other. Like in different relationships, in friendships, and as siblings, for those of us who are married with our spouses, right? Over the course of time, we get to know them better. So we could, when we first met somebody, whether it's just a friend or an acquaintance, somebody in our church, somebody in our workplace, or a spouse, we could say, well, let me tell you 4 things about that person, and that would be helpful, right? That would let us in a little bit on them, on who they are, right? But getting to know them over the course of time, in different settings, right, in different situations, and seeing how they respond really helps us to go deeper and deeper into that person and into that relationship that we can share here together. So here's my suggestion for getting to know Jesus. And again, this is perhaps I want to be applicable to those who are just sort of saying, I'm just kind of starting out here, trying to figure this Jesus thing, what it means to know and follow Jesus. How do I do that? I like to suggest to you that you simply open this book or on an app or online or whatever to one of the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and to begin reading, and specifically in one of those four books, not like Genesis, not Psalms, not Revelation, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, to specifically start opening up one of those books. And before you do that, what I would like to challenge you to do, and this applies to all of us here too. Many of us who are live here now and commenting, right, are already we're bought in. We're saying, "Yeah, Jesus, amen, I'm following you." But it still applies to us because we're still on this journey. Right? We're still disciples. We've not arrived. There's still things about God that we're learning each and every day. So as we open to part of one of these four books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and I would suggest picking one and kind of working through it. But you could also pick out different points in different ones. But before you read on a particular day, ask God to show you what he's like. If you're still a person who's really doubting and saying, I don't know about this thing at all, I don't know about God at all, whether I believe or not, pray as well as you're able to, as sincerely as you're able. God, if you're real, show yourself to me in this book that I'm reading. If you're real, show me that you're real. But even more specifically and broadly for all of us, as we read these stories about Jesus, the teachings of Jesus, Jesus's healings and miracles, and in particular, Jesus's interaction with people, I'd like to challenge you to ask two questions. This actually can be applied to other areas of the Bible as well that we study, but it's important that we kind of narrow in on what's really important. So I'd like to challenge you as you read these stories about Jesus to ask yourself, or ask of the scripture, two questions. The first is, what does this show me about what God is like? Because the Bible tells us, right, that Jesus is the fullest revelation of what God's like. So if you want to know what God is like, how God feels towards people, how God interacts with people, how he feels about people that have gone the wrong way, who have done the wrong thing, who have messed up and made a lot of mistakes. If you want to know how God feels about those kind of people, open these stories. But ask yourself that question. What does this show me about what God is like? And the second question is, what does this show me about myself? What does this show about people? And to bring those two things together, right? What is this story? What is this passage? What is this thing that I'm reading showing me about who God is and how God feels about me? Because if you try to pursue a relationship with Jesus, or even exploring what that would look like, if you just try to do it figuring it out on your own, or just with prayer, without involving the Bible in that as well, it's so easy to get off track, right? Because we can get so distracted by our feelings, by our own thoughts, by even how we feel about ourselves. And it's easy, even for those of us who have been Christians for a long time, to kind of revert back to that and say, well, I feel this way about myself, so this must be how God feels about me too. But in reality, many of us know that when we study the Bible, we find out that what we think about ourselves, about how God would feel about us, isn't true at all. Because sometimes we look at, right, our sin, we look at how much we've messed up, how many mistakes we've made, and we think, well, God must just want nothing to do with me. Or I must have to prove myself to God. But when we read these stories and these teachings and these gospels in the Bible, right, we see God's heart towards us. And so I would encourage you, whether it's for the first time or for the 100th time, whatever, to continue to open this book, and in particular, to continue to focus on these good news, these gospel accounts of Jesus, and to ask, what does this show me about God's heart? What does this show me about God's heart towards me and towards other people as well? So hopefully that's helpful. It may be helpful to some people more than others here this evening. Thanks to all who have jumped in and joined me. a lot of folks jumping in here this evening. So if you're just catching up here on the end and you want to rewind back later, you can. I will see you tomorrow night. Went a little long tonight, 10 minutes. I will see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock as well. Thanks very much and have a great evening.